Good morning, Gamecock fans. TGIF. It is Friday, June the 6th, the year of our Lord 2025. I'm JC Shurburtt, and this is Coffee. Certainly happy all of you have decided to join me this morning, this afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. It's a podcast, it's not live, but we do try to have it up by 8 Eastern in the morning, each and every Monday through Friday, right here on the Chief Sports South Carolina YouTube channel, also the Inside the Gamecocks podcast channel. It is not one of our live shows on the Chief Sports Network, not one of our app shows on the Chief Sports Network. There are two places you can get coffee, also on the bigspur.com and chiefsportsnetwork.com. We have kind of a recap for VIP members on the Big Spur. We have a synopsis every day, computer generated, JC Shurburtt edited. You got to edit those things because the program will sit there, it'll read the video, and sometimes it'll spit out that, Spencer Rattler's the quarterback at South Carolina still instead of Lenore Sellers. And so the technology isn't quite there yet. And who knows, I may have mentioned that it was Spencer Rattler like an idiot. You just never know. So it's edited. Also, Club Chief members right here on the website, in addition to the Nana Sports chat box. You get an email most days with the synopsis of coffee in it for your convenience. Some people like to read instead of listen. And then some people, I know a couple of our audience members, they have hearing issues, and they like to read instead. I know that like when except for on YouTube, when I go to articles or something like that on the web, when I'm reading up on my hobby or sports or whatever, I like to read the videos. Sometimes got to gum up my phone and things like that, depending on what the plan is. Sometimes there's on some of these websites, ESPN especially, it's like 30-second, a minute long ad to get to a minute and 15-second highlight. And I don't know about that. I guess I'm impatient. I saw a meme the other day that, where back in the day, we were pretty patient for things. But now if it's 10 seconds, we get mad loading up a video. It's the quick hitting world we live in, and I'm here for it. But definitely thankful for the coffee audience. Chief Sports is going on a break like we do every summer to kind of get ready for season 4 of the show and the morning show. June 27th through right before SEC Media Days, I think the 11th of July. With our live shows, I think the tentative plan right now is to have some coffee episodes. And then that brings me to this, just getting some house cleaning out of the way. The wife and I are going down to Columbia for the wing eating contest. You're all invited at CB18 Bar and Grill. It's our 3rd annual wing eating contest to support NIL student athletes at the University of South Carolina. My man Cox by 90, Cocky Hospitality, the Garnet Trust. We're all involved with this. It's always a great time. It's kind of taken on some different forms through the years. And it's a free event, so you don't have to pay to get in. We charged a couple of years ago, blah, blah, blah. But free event for everybody. There's going to be a dunk tank. It's a good time. Wing eating contest, dunk tank, all that good stuff. And so with that said, we're driving. Not going to risk the going to the airport. It's a pain in the bahunkus anyway these days because we have some stuff with us and stuff that'll be hard to get through security. So we're driving. So my point to say all that is there'll be some times during that week and maybe the following Monday where coffee and or the show may drop off. You may just have the morning show, but I'll flesh all that out and let you know. Now, during our hiatus on Chief, the tentative plan is to have coffee. Most days, may take a break around the 4th of July. Nobody wants to listen to me anyway during that point in time. Go to a barbecue, shoot off some fireworks. Be careful with the fireworks, but spend time with your family, all that good stuff. But that will keep right on trucking along during our hiatus, which we do every year, with the exception of a few days. So I'll let you know about all that. But certainly a fired up JC Shurburtt here as far as how the listenership has gone. I mean, YouTube is really good, but the podcast version is popular as well. And certainly enjoy this. Enjoy. I just want to let you guys know. So anyway, and again, the wing eating contest, Saturday, June the 21st, 4 to 8 p.m., CB 18 Bar and Grill down at 5 Points in Columbia. It's the old Dr. Rocco's, Steve Tannehill's bar, my man Cox by 90's bar. They co-own it. So you're supporting Gamecocks all the way around if you show up. And we certainly are looking forward to seeing all of you. The Shurburts, the wife and I definitely are looking forward to meeting all of you down there at CB 18. The morning show later today should be a nice conversation. You know, I keep hearing all this stuff from some of the SEC haters out there, and I hate that that's a thing, by the way. I'm like, God, you know, we have so many rivalries in our society now. Apparently there's a new one in politics that I'm not going to touch, but you know, politics, business, whatever. It's like a blood sport. And I think it's because my theory, and I may be wrong, is that social media just kind of brings out like kind of what people are thinking because we're human, that we probably wouldn't say otherwise. And that fuels the fire. You know, there's no filter on humanity in our society anymore. And so it gets that way. It's always been that way. Maybe I'm a little immune to it or numb to it because I've worked on message boards since '05. You know, Twitter didn't really start coming on strong until '09. You know, social media was just getting started out. But I'm used to the trashing people, you know, things you wouldn't normally say. But this whole SEC thing, it's like, my God, you know, with some of these people, it's like there's no sense. It's just they hate the SEC so much that one thing goes against any team in the league and the entire league sucks. And I'm like, that's just not a very intelligent discussion. But today on the morning show, Chad Holbrook, College of Charleston head coach, former coach of the Gamecocks, host of Chin Music podcast here on the Chief Sports Network. Looking forward to that getting cranked back up now that the baseball season's over. We'll be in with Jamie Bradford and talk some of this through. Now, he has one son at Vanderbilt and one son at North Carolina. North Carolina's red hot right now. So he's got an ACC and SEC perspective in addition to playing teams. You know, so I think that'll be a tremendous baseball discussion today with Chad. It always is. And we love Chad Holbrook here at Chief Sports and are glad to have him on. The late night Gamecock, Matt Anderson, is going to be in with Phil and myself, Phil and me, Mad Dog, JC, on the Gamecock show, the show that will follow the morning show. Going to just kind of break down recruiting weekend, football, get Matt's hot takes on everything, and have some fun like we normally do. Yesterday was the Carl Winslow conspiracy theory on the show, man. Wow. That was one of the most epic things I think we've ever done, from my personal opinion. Maybe it's like talk sports, so that's fine too. But that's coming up today. Thebigspur.com. We're going to have camp coverage, recruiting weekend coverage. Hale and Alex were out at camp yesterday. New offers have gone out. Amiri Acker, the in-state wide receiver for the 2026 class, is the most significant because he's right here in this class. From Crescent High School up in what they call the Golden Triangle, Anderson County, near Clemson. Track guy, 6'1", checked out when he worked out. No-brainer offer there. You know, here's what I like about him. You know, number one, speed. I'm a speed believer. I think this program at wide receiver, when it has not been up the last, 15 years, and it usually is, but when it's not been up, and it's probably with the exception of last season, because I wouldn't call last season up. There were a lot of different factors that went into that, including guys in and out of the lineup with injury. Beamer's mentioned several times that Vandrevius Jacobs and Delvon Campbell really needed the spring, but they weren't. They were second window portal guys. And so, last year was kind of an anomaly. But when they've been down at receiver and gotten in trouble is when they've gone size over speed. And I think a lot of times assistant coaches, position coaches, when they have a great player, they sort of go try to find that great player again. It's a little sad. I mean, not sad, like I'm not clowning them or anything, because I probably would do the same thing, just to be honest. But it's like that guy that loses, girl breaks up with him or leaves him, and he's always looking for her for the rest of his life. That's a plot. It's got to be a plot to some movie, right? Always looking for her. I see her everywhere. But they do that. And I think with Sidney Rice and Alshon Jeffrey, that happened because there were a lot of taller guys that came into the program that really weren't that good. And then I think it was done with Debo Samuel because you recruited a lot of guys that were kind of in that 205 range out of high school without elite speed. They were fast enough, like 4.55 guys. But then they got to college and put on 15 pounds, and you have a 6'2, 220-pound receiver that really can't play anything else. Not good enough to play on defense. Not really, can maybe help your special teams, maybe. Not really that good at all. And I think that's around here at least when there's been trouble, right? I mean, if you're Alabama or Ohio State, you just go get Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams and call it a day. But, when you're kind of trying to dig in at South Carolina, it's a little bit different. Maybe one day it won't be, but it is. But with Amiri Acker specifically, I like speed. If I will have. And like I said, last year's receiving core had a lot of fast guys. Larvin was fast, Harbor's fast. They're all fast. And they have a fast receiving core coming back this year too. So I like that philosophy at receiver because even if you're a little, you're not very big, and that is an issue sometimes, but you can run, you have a chance. You can run by the guy if you can get off press. So I don't like bigger receivers that can't run unless they're just like power forwards and can jump up and get the ball and things like that. So with that said, Acker's got speed. He's a track guy, really fast. He's 6'1", so he does have size. Carolina's looking for outside receivers in this class. That's why Travis Johnson was a guy. Ryan Mosley, of course, was 6'4". He committed to Georgia from Carrollton, Georgia. But, this could be an outside guy as well in time. And then in-state receivers from the state of South Carolina rarely bust. It's not 100%, but you think about the in-state guys that Carolina's gotten at receiver through the years. Even Clemson, look at Tyler Brown from Greenville a couple of years ago. They don't bust, most of the time. We'll see how Brian Staley does this year at Tennessee. I think he's going to start. And then Boston, who went to NC State's a guy, I remember back in the day, Quinshaw Davis from Gaffney. Carolina passed on him for whatever reason. Probably could take a bigger, I'll have to look at the exact class, but probably take a bigger guy that couldn't run. But Quinshaw, he ended up setting the record at North Carolina for receptions. J.J. Jones had a good run there. And I hate it that it's from Myrtle Beach. I hate it that for him, I mean, I think overall it's good for the game, but for him that they didn't win the lawsuit to get him an extra season, he and his cohorts at Duke and North Carolina. But just personally, kid from Myrtle Beach. It's my mom's hometown. My mom graduated from Myrtle Beach High School. I'm a Seahawk, sort of. And I hate it for him that he didn't get in, but he had a good run at North Carolina as well. So did Kobe Paysor from Gaffney. He's technically from Gaffney. Was a North Carolina kid that transferred in. But the point is, the state puts out receivers, and they have a low bust rate. It's receivers, it's D linemen. Primarily, those are the two positions in South Carolina that have a high hit rate. And the receiver thing, if you kind of look, Nuke Hopkins, Mike Williams, Alshon Jeffrey, Debo Samuel. I mean, those guys all are good at the pros too. I mean, Nuke Hopkins is probably one of the best receivers. People talk about generational. He would maybe be a generational receiver, just because he's productive for a long, long time. There was a time there I thought he was the best receiver in the NFL. Alshon Jeffrey certainly had a brilliant career, won a Super Bowl. Debo with the Commanders, Redskins. Phil, Mad Dog's a Redskins fan, and I'm not trying to be PC anymore about it. I wish they'd go back. It's a great fan base, But Debo's with Washington now, and when he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the league. So there's all these guys from South Carolina that are great receivers. It's just how it is. Defensive backs, I would add to that too, because normally that's something you can definitely find within the state. So I think it's great that they offered Amiri Acker once again, 6'1", 200 6'1", 175 pound, 2026 of this class receiver from Crescent High School up in Anderson County. Camped with the Gamecocks yesterday. They evaluated him. He's a take based on what they saw. Mike Fury got him out there. And I think he's got a good shot to be in the class. He's not visiting this weekend. I would guess he would come in next weekend. But certainly all those types of guys that you can get, in-state guys that camp and you find, that's something that gets me excited. I like that. I like that. And I like speed, and I like South Carolina receivers. So that was the biggest, most immediate news coming out. We're going to talk about some of the guys that they offered yesterday at camp. They offered a Swedish defensive end. How cool would that be to have a defensive end from Sweden and a linebacker from Germany? By the way, the same group that kind of facilitated Justin Okoronkwo's, journey to the United States to sign with Alabama and then ultimately come to South Carolina. That's a group that specializes in international players. It's an organization. The guy does a great job. And, getting guys out, getting them to schools and stuff. And so he's part of that group. So see, sometimes, recruiting begets recruiting, right? Hey, well, we got this guy. So now this coach is going to bring, or this guy, I guess, I don't know if you call him a mentor. He's an actual coach. Is bringing this guy in, and you got Sweeter in Sweden. That's a Swedish chef impersonation here early in the morning. I'll save that for the show. I will say it's disturbing to me personally because there's a movie called Midsummer that's set in rural Sweden about a cult. Man, it was late one night and it came on HBO or something. My wife and I were in bed watching it. I fell asleep. I woke up and the ending scene to that movie was on. I mean, you want to talk about Nightmare City? I mean, that's a freaky, disturbing movie. It's shot beautifully. It's a beautiful picture. That's what's so weird about it and creepy about it. Because there's all these pastel colors and beautiful scenery, and there's just murder and sickness and demonic. Anyway, so I used to think of, beautiful women when I thought of Sweden. Now I think of that dang movie. So there we go. So, all right. That kind of catches us up. I'll say this. Today's topic, the main topic today, I wanted to talk a little bit about this, and because I keep seeing this in my AMA thread yesterday on thebigspur.com. I was asked a couple of times. I've been asked a couple of times, playoff or bust this year. And I wanted to address that in two ways, really. First and foremost, they're, I don't know. I understand where the people are coming from with the playoff or bust. I don't want to, I don't want to come down on people that have that opinion. And I'll tell you why, and that may surprise you. Number one, I, I love my audience and my members and things like that. And I don't want to sit here and argue with people all day. It gets tiresome. Now, if something's completely wrong or crazy and it relates to attacking a coach or a player, that's normally where I get pretty fired up. But, and we debate stuff. And if you're on thebigspur.com, you know that I write a lot different than I speak. Most people that know me know I'm not just a jerk, but I write like a jerk. I'll be honest. I'll go back and read some stuff I posted on the board, and I didn't mean it that way, but that's just how I write. I had a buddy I used to work with. He was the CFO of a company. I worked with him for years. Nicest guy you'd ever want to meet in the world. Happy-go-lucky. Do anything for you. Anything you need. But his emails just came across like a prick. I mean, it happens, sometimes. But really, I debate and give my opinion, and sometimes I get fired up about it. But I don't want to come down on those people because It's just a manifestation of having expectations. And around here in Carolina, if you never have expectations, you're not gonna, you're probably never gonna get there, right? Now, there's difference between expectations and a mandate, you know, i.e., if Beamer goes 7-5, it's a severe disappointment, and you start talking about firing people, which is what happens. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think South Carolina has a chance to make the college football playoff this year. In all honesty, it's an unpredictable sport these days. I think largely the reason that South Carolina is ranked pretty consistently between 10 and 20 most of the time. I saw somebody with them fifth the other day on social media. It wasn't one of the big boys, but I think that part of the reason they're ranked like that is because of Lenore Sellers. And, if you're trying to predict a college football season, and that's how everybody earns a living, list season and talking season and all that, you're probably looking at who's coming back at quarterback. And Carolina has a special quarterback coming back for second year as a full-time starter, new offensive coordinator, all that good stuff. And Lenore Sellers, so I mean, you watch some of what he did. Go listen to Todd McShay talk about this guy and others. I mean, it's special. It's unprecedented. He's rare, and when you have a rare special player at that position, you always have a chance. I mean, I think I mentioned Clemson like four times today, but anyway, in 2015, 2016, when Clemson really had their breakthrough, it was Deshaun Watson. I mean, largely that was a good football team. They had the lowest blue chip ratio, by the way, barely over 50%. It's a lot of kids from South Carolina and Georgia and Florida that they had recruited and developed. And, Mike Williams, for example, was a low four-star player, rated the same as Brian Edwards and everybody else out of Lake Marion. Carolina dropped the ball on him, by the way. They should have had him. They had a long lead for a long time. Kind of Jeff Scott came in the back door. Anyway, that's a story for a history lesson. But Ben Boulware, low four-star out of TL Hanna. All those kids like Tankersley that started in the secondary were three-star kids that Carolina did not want. Lorenzo Ward did not want them at the time. Breland was that like that, So when they had their breakthrough, Deshaun Watson obviously was a big part of that. Think about the wins they had over Louisville and Lamar Jackson that night, or the Bring Your Own Guts game in 2015. I mean, Deshaun was special. And so when you have a special quarterback coming back, that can lift your team, right? I don't think Clemson wins without him, just to be honest. Now their 2018 with Trevor Lawrence, obviously they had a good quarterback, but they had a lot of other pieces too that were special by that point. But that's what you have to do. Sometimes you have your breakthrough year. A lot of times it is a surprise. It is a surprise. Even Alabama, their breakthrough year was the year before they won the first one under Saban in 2008. And Clemson again, another Clemson reference. Clemson was ranked in the top 10. They played in Atlanta to open the season. Tommy Bowden, that was the year he got fired. And Alabama lined up and just beat the crap out of them. And Bama had been 7-6 and lost to Louisiana Monroe the year before. But development, and then they had a big recruiting class that came in, largely in-state players. Julio Jones obviously was a 5-star, but you had a lot of other dudes. And the young, Mark Ingram, young in there. But they had their breakthrough, and it was a surprise. They were not preseason ranked and all that good stuff. And then the next year they won it all. So even with your blue blood volcano programs, Florida, Urban Meyer's first year that they won it all with Chris Leak and Tebow coming in inside the 10. That team didn't score over 30 points against an SEC opponent until the SEC championship game. They put it all together and they won the title. So sometimes it has to be a surprise or a breakthrough year is not something you can always predict in college football. And so, but if you have a quarterback, there's a chance you can have that breakthrough year. And so that's why they're ranked pretty high. So the folks that say playoff or bust, I get it. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I think it's great to dream and have expectations. That's the bottom line. So this is not about raining on anyone's parade or being Debbie Downer about any of it. I think that can South Carolina make the playoff this year? Yes. There's questions that have to be answered, just like at every program in the country right now, at different spots. I know some are fearful that the defense is going to take a huge step back. I called a 2014 reference again the other day. Uh, I'll say this: this defense, if we want to just not go way back in time, this defense has more talent on it than any defense Beamer has had since besides last season. And as far as just pure talent, i.e., guys that will play in the NFL one day, they probably have, maybe more than last year when all is said and done. Now, the problem is, as we know, inexperience. Guys, those D tackles last year played their best football. Demetrius Knight was an older dude, that kind of thing. I mean, you're looking at younger players, but I think they could be more talented. When you have talent, you have a chance. 2014 defense and a lot of the other ones that were not good around here, they didn't have players. I mean, they were very deficient at different spots, and depth was an issue, like in 18 when everybody got hurt. And look, I think if there's multiple injuries on defense this year and they're having to kind of piece it together with bubble gum and scotch tape, yeah, the defense is going to struggle, just like the O line 2 years ago. That's just how it is. But I don't think that there's a reason to think there's going to be this huge drop off. Now, last year's defense was really, really good, historic even in certain games. There were some games that maybe it wasn't as expected. Missouri LSU came into Williams-Brice and moved the football up and down the field and scored points. So in the 30s, and Gamecocks won one of those and lost one of those. But do I think there's going to be like issues? Like, I mean, there's been defenses around here that couldn't stop anybody. No, I think it sets up fine. But they have to replace a lot of good players in football. It's a crapshoot. It happens. But as far as the playoff goes, yeah, I think they've got a shot. I don't necessarily think it has to be that they can't stop anybody this year. I think they can have a good defense again. Clayton White's done a really good job. Has he been perfect? No, but he's done a really good job. So I think that there's a shot. Now the schedule, tough. I mean, when you're talking about expecting to go 5-0, and again, high expectations are good against a schedule that has a neutral site game against a proud program that's a Power Four team. Open up the SEC schedule with a freaking ridiculousness in Vanderbilt that will catch you in their spider web in a heartbeat, and they're due against the Gamecocks. You got to go to Columbia, Missouri. Eli Drinkwitz thinks it's his birthright to never lose to South Carolina, and heck, they almost won last year. That would have been a poop sandwich, right? For the Mayor's Cup, that scares you. It also scares you going out there early. But I will share this with you. After Carolina beat Kentucky at the end of 23, which is probably the best win of that season, the Darude game, great atmosphere, helped recruiting a lot. I was like concerned about going to Kentucky early because I was like, well, Stoops feels like he should have won this one. And Carolina's got to go up there. And that's week 2. And then after the Old Dominion game, I mean, there was a reason Kentucky was a 9.5-point favorite at the time. But look how it turned out. So, it doesn't always mean, my concerns about, last year versus this coming year, turns out it was unfounded about the Wildcats. But, and then Kentucky, speaking of, comes in to round out September, and they've got a lot of new players and picked up a lot of good players in the portal. And I honestly, folks, don't think their quarterback situation can get worse. I mean, Vandegrift was just awful last season, and he got worse. I mean, Carolina kind of took it out of him, and then it just kept keeping on. a moment of, I guess reprieve against Ole Miss, beating them. I don't know how they did that. But then, they lost to Vandy and the wheels kind of came off. And by the end of the season, got blown out by Louisville at home. And I think everybody's just ready to get in the portal or, see what was next. So, but they, Mark Stoops hadn't forgotten how to coach. And they hit the portal and they got some dudes. They got a defensive end from the University of South Dakota who I really like. So by that point, you're in game 5. So you should kind of know about both teams. And it's not a game I expect Carolina to lose, but it's still an SEC team. And it's one that, again, what I said about Eli Drinkwitz, I could say it about Mark Stoops. He's lost 3 in a row now, but thinks this is birthright to beat South Carolina. And it's big for Kentucky and Missouri to beat South Carolina, and it's big for South Carolina to beat those guys. The old SEC East peer schools. Even if they stay at 8 games in the SEC, Kentucky's always going to be on the schedule. So you better you better get them if the Stoops era comes to an end. You better get them at the end of this because Summerall from Tulane will probably be their next coach, and I expect them to trend back up. What's the ceiling there? Probably what Stoops did. Should Carolina beat Kentucky most of the time, no matter who the coach is? Absolutely. But I'm just saying he's going to get in there and rejuvenate that thing. He's a Kentucky guy. I expect them to put a lot of money in his coffers if they have it, if they don't spend it all on basketball. But and it'll be interesting if he gets that job because they'll have 2 alums in Mark Pope and him coaching their major sports teams at UK. So we'll see what happens there. But that's the first 5, and we're talking about 5-0 and blah blah blah. And it's like that's not a brutal stretch, but it's a difficult stretch. But then it gets realer because the Gamecocks go to Baton Rouge, haven't won there since '94. Oklahoma comes to town. I don't know what to make about them. My guess is they're a better football team this year by a good margin. Their record may not show it. The Alabama game, our friend from that SEC podcast, Mike Bratton, picks them to win the league, and I may too. I'm just going to be honest. It's the second year under Kalen DeBoer. I mentioned quarterbacks earlier. You're hesitant about that because of the quarterback situation, but my thought process in picking them would be everything else is in really good shape. Every other position. Ty Simpson could be like Cade Klubnik, a 5-star guy, kind of waited in the wings, kind of started maybe before, had to start a couple starts before he's ready, took over, took his lumps, and now Cade's, a lot of people have him as number 1 quarterback in college football. That's Clemson reference number 8 today on a Friday. Jeez. The reason I reference them, I've said it before, is that I know every one of you, no matter what you say, you keep up with them, so it's a good reference point. Nevertheless, so that's the thought about Alabama, but it's going to be tough. I do think that'll probably be a night game. I have to look at who everybody else has that weekend. So then there's an off date, and then you go out to Oxford and Ole Miss. And South Carolina's never beaten Lane Kiffin. Actually, maybe there's not an open date. Nah, maybe there. No, there's not. I think Ole Miss is right on the heels of that. Then there's an open date. Then it's at Texas A&M in mid-November. That was the 29th, kind of place in the schedule. The 2019 A&M game came out in College Station, and then Coastal comes in, and then the Clemson Tigers come in. So this stretch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Your last 7 games are against LSU on the road, Oklahoma, Alabama at home, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M, Coastal, and then Clemson. Thank God Jamie Chadwell is no longer at Coastal because that, with that style of play, I mean, that I don't, right now, I don't expect Coastal to come in and beat the Gamecocks on that weekend. But man, that would having to get ready for that between A&M and a road game at A&M and Clemson, that's tough. Just like we were thankful last year, Wofford wasn't triple option anymore, right? So that's the schedule. That's how it sets up. And so can Carolina make the playoff? Yeah, they just got to win the toss-up games. Last season, heading into most of them were toss-ups. and whether Carolina won by 25 or lost by 2 or lost by 24, they were kind of within a touchdown. That's just kind of life in this league now. So you got to be consistent. You got to have depth and all that stuff. So can they win the playoff? Absolutely. Dare to dream, my friends, on that. Um, is it playoff or bust, though? And this is where I'll say no. All this stuff we're talking about all week, recruiting. Well, if it's playoff or bust this year, why are you recruiting? Why are we even worried about it? Now there is no tomorrow in college football. What I mean, and I've said that a lot, but what I mean by that more is like, okay, so you don't like intentionally redshirt a guy that could help you win games that year, just so you can, you know, have save him for the future. It's like a dog burying a bone in the yard. We don't bury the bones anymore, right? There is no tomorrow as far as having a year where you're going to have you're going to have a losing record, but you're going to play a lot of young guys, because the transfer portal helps you with that. And it helps you fill some holes, and sometimes you fill them in really good ways, and you optimize your roster and you go to war. There is no tomorrow in college football from that perspective. But I don't think that, just like I rejected the notion Steve Spurrier was the only coach that could win at South Carolina, though I think the world of Coach Spurrier and really, miss him, to be honest, because of who he is and his quotes and style of coaching. He kind of fit around here. And so does Shane Beamer, for that matter, just kind of in a different way. But just like I rejected that, and just like there were some folks that did say, losing Spencer Rattler after 2023, he was a generational quarterback. They used the word generational. Probably one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play at Carolina, maybe the most talented quarterback to ever play at Carolina before Lenore Sellers. But I was always high on Lenore Sellers. And while there were probably more growing pains early than I would have liked, he got it eventually. And so now it's like, oh, he's draft eligible after this year. It's like, oh, you got 1 year to get this done with Sellers potentially. And, but maybe not. And a lot of people say that, but again, there is no tomorrow. Win now, because you don't know year to year what your portal haul is going to look like, if you're going to be young, whatever. But is it do or die? No. And you look, I'm looking, through some of this stuff here, as far as previous teams that have broken through. Like 98, Tennessee won the national championship. So I mentioned Clemson and Tennessee today. Boy, I'm just throwing it out there, folks. They won that with T. Martin at quarterback after 4 years of Peyton Manning, where they came up short, mainly because they couldn't beat Florida and Steve Spurrier. But they broke through in 98. Bobby Bowden had so many great teams until 93 when he finally broke through. I mean, they had to go through the misery of losing to Miami on missed kicks for all those years in the 80s. And they were better than, if they'd had a playoff, he and Spurrier both would have had a ton of titles. It'd have been, if they'd had a playoff, I think it would have been a rotating Florida State, and Miami deal through the 80s and most of the 90s. That's something to talk about another time. But that's why you recruit that Tennessee team that won it all. They're loaded. T. Martin stepped in and did a good job, right? I mean, it's just how it works. Sometimes it's not unprecedented to lose a generational player to the NFL. And I hope Lenore Sellers is generational. I think skill set wise and rarity he is. And then come back and have a strong year. It's just how it goes. Virginia Tech didn't have that much drop off after Michael Vick left. In fact, they had their big year when they got to the team Shane Beamer was on in 99, and Vick actually was back in 2000, and they fell a little short and won the Gator Bowl. Beat the Tigers in that one. Clemson reference number 10. And so there's all these, I guess, all these things. I mean, I mentioned Clemson reference number 11. Deshaun Watson, they did not win it all his first year as a starter. They lost 45-40 to Bama. They beat him the next year. So sometimes it's a gradual process. And that wasn't Watson wasn't really applicable because he was back. I'm talking about losing Sellers and then having a good year the following year, and that happens sometimes. I mean, it's just I've seen it before in college football. So you just keep recruiting and you try to build a consistent winner. Carolina had a consistent winner under Steve Spurrier, and then it dipped, and all of a sudden in 2015 they weren't winners anymore. Will Muschamp was pretty inconsistent. After it was kind of roller coaster. You go up, 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 and then down. But yeah, I mean that's the problem, and I think because Spurrier was such a good coach, and he's kind of survived years 4 and 5, when the program ultimately used to dip. You didn't have the transfer portal then. Uh, and he had winning seasons and went to bowls. And that was good because that had never really happened. Carolina hadn't been to 3 straight bowls until 08, 09, and then 2010. Then they had a breakthrough year in 2010. That was year 6. So, sometimes it takes that long. It probably shouldn't take as long with the portal. But if you're building a program and not just a team, like Indiana last year, good team. Still don't think they're a playoff team, but good team. We'll see if it's sustainable. I think some of these Ole Miss teams have just been individually teams, but what Lane Kiffin's done is make that a consistent deal. And that's good. And I think that's what you want. And that's why you keep recruiting and developing players. And so all this recruiting they're doing now, if it's playoff or bust, it really doesn't matter, does it? And they got quarterbacks in the pipeline. If they get Landon Duckworth, that's a guy that can really help. Cutter Woods, I think, is a guy that can win some games here as a starter. Air Noland, I think, left-handed quarterback, but once he gets going, he's got arm talent. So there's life after Sellers. Life after Sellers, documentary. And so I don't think it is playoff or bust. And they could have a disappointing season. Maybe the naysayers about the defense are right and they can't stop anybody. Maybe there's injuries. Maybe there's just a bunch of close losses, like happened last year against LSU and Bama. That'd be frustrating. I mean, you think about it. Carolina finished 9-3 in the regular season, at 9-4 overall. There were 2 of those games that were close that could have gone the other way. Clemson and Missouri. So you could have been 7-6. And then everybody's talking about, can they get in the top 25? Can they get in the Citrus Bowl? That kind of thing. And both of those games could have easily, if it weren't for Sellers' heroics at the end, they could have easily gone the way of both Tigers. So I don't think it is playoff or bust. I think that what you're looking for this year is, can they keep it going? Can they get in the hunt? Can they be in the mix? Because if you're in the mix and you're in the hunt, as we saw last year, things go your way, you can be talked about at the end of the season as far as the college football playoff goes. So, keep up the expectations and enthusiasm, folks. And like I said, I'm not coming down on anybody that says that. I think it's great that South Carolina fans and people have high expectations. That's a good next step, and it's good to see that some of the folks out there understand that if you have a coach that makes the right decisions and recruits and grows over time like Shane Beamer has, and he's your guy, that's the sweet spot. And the winning is part of it. This is it's a good place. It's a good program. There's people outside of South Carolina that wonder why the Gamecocks have not won through the years. It's smack dab in the middle of D-line heaven, of football country USA. It's a football state. It's a big passionate fan base. They have resources. They're in the SEC. People are like, why don't they win more? And there's just been a lot through the years, and progress in this sport is slow. I mean, the Athletic has been going back and look, because we're in 2025, so we're a quarter century into the 2000s, 2000, this millennial, I guess. But there's been a lot of articles, best programs since 2000 and all that. And 2000 actually is significant for the Gamecocks because That was Lou Holtz's second year, and that's when it turned. That's when it went from, oh gosh, hope we can get to a bowl to, hey, maybe something bigger can happen. Maybe they can finish ranked in the top 25. Maybe they can win more games. And then it took Spurrier a while to get there, but they won the SEC East in year 6 and had the big run. And then, it dipped a bit. And that happens. I mean, that's even the great programs go through the wilderness a little bit. But Carolina's coming out of it, coming out of it. Uh, a bad year, what it would mean, what would be probably, it'd be a setback. And when I say bad year, I'm talking 5-7, something like that. It'd be a setback, but it's not the end of the journey. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's not the end of the journey. It's just a bump in the road. It just means you wait a little longer, and I think all of us understand around here that patience is a virtue, and we have plenty of it. Although it seems sometimes like we don't, we definitely do at South Carolina. Folks, have a great weekend. Be sure to check out the morning show. Chad Holbrook in with a great baseball discussion. Curious to see what he says about this whole SEC hater thing. Matt Anderson, the late night Gamecock, will be in with Phil and myself, the Mad Dog and myself, to close out the week from noon to 2. And then we'll have the weekend, recruiting weekend. Be sure to stay logged on to thebigspur.com. Have a promotion going on, 60% off an annual VIP membership if you join. Join up. Also, if you pay full price for an annual or even a monthly, $9.95 a month or whatever, you get Paramount Plus for free. So if you're trying to talk to your wife about the monthly subscription budget and you want to join the Big Spur, point out to her, hey, $9.95 a month and we get Paramount Plus for free with it. So it really only costs like $3. I used to hear that all the time. Wife won't let me keep the Big Spur membership. And it's true. They weren't excuses. And now that there's Paramount Plus involved, I don't hear that as much. Brilliant. Thanks to CBS and Paramount for taking care of that for us. Anyway, folks, I'm JC Shurburtt. Have a wonderful weekend. This has been Coffee. Holla at you soon.